Very good morning, all the viewers and the webinar team. This is A. Ram Prasad, Principal, Telangana Model School, Ramachandrapuram, Sangareddy District. It's my privilege to introduce Mrs. A.L. Bharati, postgraduate teacher in Political Science from Telangana Model School, Bolaram, Jinnaram Mandal, Sangareddy District. She has a vast experience in teaching and a wonderful academic profile. She has done her Masters in Political Science from Central University, Hyderabad, and B.Ed from Andhra Mahila Sabha, Hyderabad, and she is pursuing her PhD from Usman University now. The session which she is going to conduct is the second one in the series. The first one was already covered, that is election system in India. It's the continuation series which covers the rest of the part of the particular unit. So I look forward for all the students making optimum utilization of the session and her expertise. Over to Mrs. Bharati for conducting the session.
Thank you, Ram Prasad sir. Good morning, students. Welcome back to the series of webinars in political science. Today we are going to deal with the election system in India, lesson 2. So in the previous session, we already discussed some aspects related to this lesson, like the powers and functions of the Election Commission. And today's session is a continuation to that. Let us have a look at the brief history of the elections held in post-independent India. The Election Commission of India conducted 17 general elections for Lok Sabha and many more elections for state legislative assemblies till 2020. The 17th general election took place very recently, that is in the year 2019. You are all aware of that. The Election Commission introduced EVMs in 1999 in 45 Lok Sabha constituencies. For the first time, EVMs were introduced in the year 1999 on a pilot basis. They introduced only in 45 Lok Sabha constituencies. Since 2004, EVMs have been used in all general elections. So in the 1999, it was done on a pilot basis only for 45 Lok Sabha constituencies, and they extended this to all the constituencies in 2004. EVMs were developed and tested by the state-owned Electronic Corporation of India Limited and Bharat Electronics. So they are made indigenously in our own country. Some more points here regarding the elections in post-independent India. The election system in India adopts the first past the post, in short we call it FPTP, for elections to the Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies. What do you mean by FPTP? FPTP is also known as the simple majority system. In this voting method, the candidate with the higher number of votes in a constituency is declared the winner. Whoever gets the highest number of votes in a particular constituency will be declared as the winner. So it is very simple. That's why we call it a simple majority system. President and vice president are elected through the proportional system of representation. So the election of president and vice president is different from the election of the Lok Sabha members or the state legislative members. In this system, in FPTP, that is first past the post system, the candidate, whoever gets the majority of the votes, will be elected. Then what happens to the rest of the votes? See, one person is the winner, but others also received votes by the people. all those votes will go waste. But in this system, this particular proportional system of representation, votes will not go waste. So that is the feature of this system. It is done in ranked manner. Okay, all the votes are given in ranked manner. During T.N. Sessions' tenure, EPIC was introduced in 1993 for the first time. So we discussed a little bit about Mr. T.N. Session, our former Chief Election Commissioner of India. And during his time, the EPIC cards were introduced. That took place in the year 1993. You remember there was a picture regarding this in the previous session also. EVMs, NOTA, and VVPAT. An EVM has 3 units. The first one is ballot unit. The second one is control unit. And the third one is voter verifiable paper audit trail, that is VVPAT. Let us have a look at the EVM in the picture. So this is the ballot box, the old system that we were following before the entry of EVMs in elections. So now we are not using ballot box in the general elections. Mostly they are confined to the elections. I mean, they are used in the elections for local bodies. For legislative assemblies and Lok Sabha elections, we are using EVMs. Okay. So what are the units? What are the parts of the EVM? So this is control unit. It will be kept with one of the polling officials, and this is ballot unit. It will be kept in a secret chamber where the voters will go and cast their vote. If you see here, these are all, see this white part here, these are all, here you can see the names of the candidate, though they are not visible clearly. These are the voters' names, their symbols, and the corresponding button, which is in blue color. So this is just like the ballot paper. This part is just like the ballot paper. That's why it's called the ballot unit. So candidate will choose the person according to his choice and then press the button. Here, buttons you can see in blue color, they'll press the button. So after casting the vote, the voter can see here, this is VVPAT. Here, it appears, the picture appears. I mean, the slip will appear for 7 seconds and it will automatically cut down after that. And during these 7 seconds, the voter can see to whom he has actually voted. Okay. So in the ballot box, what happens? A voter will be given a ballot paper and the voter will take it to the secret chamber and there he will cast his vote. He will put the symbol on, I mean, he'll put the seal on the symbol of his choice, the candidate of his choice. So there the voter is very much it is very much clear to the voter that he has given the vote to the candidate of his choice. But what happens in EVM, when he presses the button, he is not sure whether his vote has gone to the candidate of his choice or not. So how to know that? To avoid this problem, to avoid confusion among the voters, Election Commission of India came up with a very novel idea called VVPAT. Here you can see clearly, the voter can see clearly to whom he has given his vote. So VVPAT is a very recent introduction. Originally, the EVM had only 2 units, that is control unit and ballot unit, right? Did you understand? BU can record votes for 64 contestants at a time. What do you mean by this? In the ballot unit, 64 candidates' names can be displayed and the symbols and names of the candidates can be displayed. As many as 64 candidates' names can be included in the BU. Button was added in 2013 by Election Commission as per instructions of the Supreme Court. Okay. So I'll give you a very easy example that you all know. While writing multiple choice questions in the exams, usually you are given 4 options. Sometimes the 4th option will be none of the above, right? So that option should be there in the elections also. Suppose the candidates who are contesting the elections, sometimes some people may not like any of the candidates contesting the elections. Okay, so they don't have any choice. They did not like any of the member contesting the elections. Then what is the choice? None of the above. That is nothing but nota button. So there are many doubts regarding this nota button. Suppose in an election, if nota gets more voters go for nota with nota, then what will be the result? It will not be considered. It is just a choice given to the voters, but nota votes will not be counted. They'll keep that aside and then see which candidate has got the highest votes. Then he will be given the he will be declared as the winner. Then what is the actual use of having nota button is the question posed by many. But voters should have a right to express themselves. For that, nota button is useful. Okay, so if you don't like anybody, you will go with nota. But getting more votes for nota indicates that people are not happy with the candidates who are contesting the elections. It just shows the displeasure of the voters. It just shows how the voters are rejecting the candidates. Okay, so nota will not be taken into consideration. Whichever candidate gets the highest votes only will be declared as the winner. So as I told you, VVPAT is used for instant verification of the vote cast in the EVMs. So now let us look at the electoral reforms in India. Though recognized as the largest democracy in the world, our election system is not free from flaws. So one of the largest democracies, but does it mean that it is foolproof? No problems at all? No. Our election system is not free from flaws. There are many things that needs correction and fixation. Some of the factors that tarnish the image of our democracy and negatively affect the electoral system are, so here we are going to discuss the problems that we are facing. What do you mean? Tarnish the image. Tarnishing the image means, it's like something negative related to the system. Okay. So let us see what are the factors that are creating trouble to us. Influence of money power. There is a lot of involvement of money in elections. No doubt, political parties and candidates need money to campaign, to carry out campaign, to do different things. Money is needed, but here the excess influence of money is the problem. Money being used in a negative way, that means to buy the voters, okay? Or sometimes you can see the political parties giving tickets only to the people who can spend a lot of money in the elections. See, earlier political parties were choosing, candidates on the basis of their reputation, whether after entering the politics, after going to the legislative assembly or the Lok Sabha, will he be able to serve the people properly or not? Is he committed to the cause of the people? That was the criterion looked for by the political parties. But nowadays, political parties want to be sure that the ticket that they are going to give to the candidate, that particular candidate is capable of winning the elections. Only capable candidates are given the ticket, but not the people who are really committed to the cause of the people. That is the influence of money power. Involvement of criminals in politics. If you go through the newspapers and news channels, many times you will come across stories that depict the relationship between many criminals and politicians. They go hand in hand, they work very closely, and sometimes openly they they interact with criminals. So this is the situation in the country. So this is one of the biggest problems that we have to somehow find solution to. Spread of communal hatred in our society. During the time of elections, leaders want to take advantage of the communal factor. They will try to encourage people against another community and try to gain something out of that. Okay, so this involvement of criminals and money power are the two biggest challenges that we are facing, and the election commission is coming up with different strategies to deal with these problems. Misuse of official machinery. This is another problem that has been plaguing the election system in the country. What do you mean by misuse of official machinery? Suppose the party in power will use all the officials to gain some personal mileage. All the police force and the bureaucrats are used for the ruling party's benefit. Okay, actually the ruling party should not use the officials for its personal works, but it is exactly the opposite is taking place in the country. So you can always get to hear the opposition parties complaining that the police force is just following the calls of the ruling party and they are not following the code of conduct. All these things, all these complaints you will get to hear during the time of elections. It is the reality. It is taking place. Okay, so we have to counter this. Defects in the preparation of electoral rolls. This is a very common problem that we have been experiencing. In fact, I personally experienced this problem. My name was deleted from the electoral rolls. When I went to the booth, I was told that your vote is not there. And the same thing happened to my family members even. And this is usually done with vested interests. The ruling parties will try to manipulate the electoral rolls and try to delete the votes that they may the votes that they think that may go to the opposition party candidates. Okay, this is also the reality and we have to accept this, and the election commission has come up with this idea to deal with this. Now electoral reforms in India continued. Several attempts have been made by some commissions and committees over the years to identify the shortcomings affecting the electoral process. See, we common people are able to identify so many defects. Do you think the election commission doesn't know all these? We know, and we have been, the election commission has been making efforts. So to solve these problems, commissions and committees were appointed from time to time. So let us have a look at the reforms. The committees and commissions have suggested significant electoral reforms. After a lot of research and surveys, they have found out some mistakes as well as some remedies also. The committees and commissions that have made important recommendations on electoral reforms in the post-independent India are Joint Parliamentary Committee in the year 1972, just 22 years after the establishment of the Election Commission. Tarki-Munde Committee in the year 1975. Dinesh Goswami Committee, 1990. Ohra Committee, 1993. Indrajit Gupta Committee, 1998. Law Commission Report in the year 1999. National Commission to Review the Working of the Constitution 2001, Election Commission of India itself in the year 2004, Second Administrative Reforms Commission 2008, Association for Democracy Report on Reforms in the year 2013. These are some of the commissions and committees that have been selected by the textbook, and there are many others. What are the electoral reforms in India? Some more points let us discuss here. The government supported the revolutionary changes in the electoral system proposed by the commissions and committees. Okay, so after a lot of work, lot of research, these commissions and committees came up with some recommendations, and the government also supported them. The Election Commission adopted the changes to address the following issues that have been an impediment to free and fair elections. What do you mean by impediment? An obstacle, a problem, okay? The first one is criminalization of politics. As I told you, there is a close relationship between the criminals and the politicians. In fact, sometimes you will not be in a position to make out the difference whether he is a politician or a criminal. Okay, so there has been an increase in criminalization of politics in some parts of the country. This trend is very much rampant in some parts of the country compared to other areas. Criminalization of politics happens due to the nexus between political leaders and criminals. What do you mean by the word nexus? A close relationship between political leaders and criminals. The criminals entering the political sphere, as I told you, winning the elections is the only criterion that most of the political parties look in the candidates. Whether they have a criminal background or anything, whether they are illiterates, all these things don't bother the political parties. Often, people having criminal records are good at winning the elections. So the political parties don't shy away from giving seats, tickets to these people. That is how criminals are entering the political sphere. To win the elections, criminals intimidate and threaten the voters. So that is the actual character of the criminals. They know nothing but to intimidating, forcing the voters or threatening them to cast votes in their favor. Okay, so sometimes these type of problems we can see in rural areas where criminals openly threaten the rural people to cast votes in their favor. Okay, so they will threaten the voters saying that if you don't vote for a particular candidate that we are promoting, then you may have to face dire consequences. So these kind of threats really intimidate the voters and prevent them from exercising their franchise in a free and fair manner. Criminals winning the elections misuse their position. Obviously, they will misuse their position. They don't have any regard for rules and regulations, and they try to get personal gains out of the power they get from the elections, from winning the elections. The Vohra Committee identified different forms of criminalization of politics. How the criminalization of politics, in what different forms it takes place, is well identified and discussed by the Vohra Committee. The Association for Democratic Reforms filed a writ petition in the Supreme Court seeking its attention towards criminalization of politics. So the apex court should take note of this criminalization of politics. So they wanted the Supreme Court to intervene and pay attention towards this aspect. Following the Supreme Court's judgment, the Election Commission required candidates contesting elections to file affidavits disclosing criminal cases pending against them. Okay, so the Supreme Court gave a judgment taking the plea of Association for Democratic Reforms into consideration, and gave order in such a way that the Election Commission required candidates contesting elections to file affidavits disclosing criminal cases pending against them. What do you mean by affidavits? It's an official statement or official document that talks about the criminal cases, what are the assets of the candidates, and what are their debts if they have any. I mean, all the personal information. How many cars does the candidate own? All these details will be placed in the affidavits. Okay. It is very interesting to see that some of the political leaders who are considered to be very rich, sometimes they state in their affidavits that they don't own a car, okay, or they don't have any bank balances. I don't know how they think that the people believe them, but sometimes we come across all these, I don't know, very hard to believe points in affidavits, okay. So why do you think these affidavits are important? So these kind of disclosures will enlighten the voters. They will know, they will exercise their franchise in an informed way. If they know about the two colors of the candidates, they may choose the right candidate. With that intention, this reform was introduced by the Election Commission. Criminalization of politics continued. The Election Commission made disclosure of criminal antecedents of candidates mandatory. Okay, so if any criminal case is pending against a candidate, he must inform that. If he tries to hide that, sometimes he may attract disqualification to contest the elections. Mandatory means it is compulsory for all the candidates whoever is contesting the elections. Disclosure, very, very important. The word disclosure is very, very important here, because previously, before this rule was imposed by the Election Commission, candidates were not revealing the cases that were pending against them. However, some committees and commissions recommended that those facing criminal cases for which the punishment is imprisonment for 2 years or more be barred from contesting elections. Some committees and commissions made some very, revolutionary recommendations. What are those recommendations? The people who are facing criminal cases for which punishment is 2 or more years of imprisonment, they should not be allowed to contest the election at all. Okay, many people on a lighter note started saying that if this rule is strictly followed, I don't think political parties will find any candidates. Okay, so this is a kind of joke that was cracked after getting to hear this recommendation, because many people are, have criminal records. I don't say that this is just confined to one particular party. Many parties, okay, majority of the parties have candidates having criminal background. So this is very revolutionary, this recommendation. So the second point is growing money power. Some candidates use unaccounted black money while contesting in elections. Okay, What do you mean by black money? The money for which no tax has been paid, and the money which is not shown on records. So candidates use this black money in elections to buy the votes, and to sometimes to fund the candidates also. Okay. Candidates to use for their electoral purposes. The use of huge amounts of money by some candidates during campaigns deprive genuine candidates from winning. So it is a known fact that the candidates who are using large amounts of money during campaigns are getting the money from illegal means. Okay. They must be having a lot of black money with them, so they will try to use that money in the elections. But sometimes what happens, there are many genuine candidates also who are contesting the elections. So these genuine people are actually deprived of opportunities. What happens is, the people who are having this black money will try to buy the votes. They will tell that we will give this much money for each vote, so you should vote for our party. So voters, usually those who are illiterates, those who don't know the value of the vote, will try to they may fall for that, all these tactics. So in that way, what happens, they will not even look at the genuine candidates. Okay. So unless and until we curb the influence of money, genuine candidates will not get a chance to win the elections. In fact, during the time of elections, sometimes media channels will broadcast news saying that so in so and so area, people are asking the candidates, how much are you going to offer to the vote? Your opposition party candidate is offering this much. Will you offer more than that? So people are also not understanding the value of their vote. Okay. So problem is from both the sides. Most of the times, voters also don't value their vote. They just look for some benefits. They don't understand that going to the booth and exercising their franchise is both right and a duty. So these people, these kind of voters, fall for the money power. It is alleged that some leaders use money to buy votes. Just now I discussed this. They allegedly present gifts to community leaders and donate money for community assets. So different communities, a candidate belong to a particular community will try to attract the voters of his community by influencing the community leaders. They donate money and they try to buy assets for that particular community, and in that way try to get all the votes belonging to that particular community. To counter these malpractices, the EC appoints election observers and expenditure observers to each parliamentary or assembly constituency. Okay, so all these malpractices are well known. EC is also aware of that. So to counter this, EC appoints election observers and expenditure observers. Election observers, how the process is going on, whether any candidate is violating the code of conduct, and how much expenditure is, how much expenditure by each candidate. All these things are observed by the election commission appointed observers. Okay, they will take complaints from people also. If people like us, the common people, observe any misuse or any expenditure or over expenditure of the candidates, they can report to these observers. So each constituency will have these observers. The commission has made it mandatory for candidates to declare their assets and liabilities before filing their nomination papers. So the candidates who want to contest the elections will have to file the nomination papers. So during that time itself, they have to disclose their assets and liabilities. The year 2003 saw a landmark development. The Election Commission imposed a ceiling on election expenditure, the limit of which has been raised over the years. So expenditure is a very important aspect, because if a party's expenditure is going up, means they are trying to buy more and more votes, or they're trying to influence more and more voters. So there should be a limit on this. Okay. So it imposed a ceiling. Ceiling means some kind of cap. I mean, some kind of limit to the expenditure. So this limit is not the same for all the years, because the cost of living increases. So accordingly, the limit is also changed from one election to the other. It doesn't remain fixed forever. Now let us see. Currently, the ceiling on expenditure for each Lok Sabha seat is between 54 and 70 lakhs. During, within this limit only, a candidate contesting for Lok Sabha elections can spend money, not beyond this. So if it goes beyond this, then complaints may go to the expenditure observers. For a state assembly constituency, the limit is between 20 and 28 lakhs. It is interesting to note that some commissions and committees recommended state funding of elections. It is obvious that elections involve a lot of expenditure of money, both by the government and by the candidates contesting the elections. So this funding, what do you mean by funding? All the money required by the candidates to contest the elections should come from the state funding. I mean, the government should fund the elections. That means whatever money, see here we are talking about 54 to 70 lakh expenditure for Lok Sabha, and between 20 and 28 lakhs for assembly constituency. Each candidate requires this much of amount. So many commissions recommended that let the state fund the elections. Let the state give money to the candidates for required for their campaigning. But is it really possible? Is it really possible? But there is one advantage here. If state funding takes place, it will fund the candidates equally. I mean, all the candidates will get funding so that they will be able to carry out their campaigns on par with other candidates. I mean, there is some kind of equality here, but it is going to be a very big burden for the government. Okay, even the state starts funding the elections, there is no guarantee that the candidates will not spend any money, secretly. Okay. So what do you think about state funding of elections? Use of caste and religion in elections. Though we are aware of the problems that are associated with caste and religion, we are still not in a position to rule out the influence of these two factors in the elections also. Often, candidates contesting in elections use caste, religion, gender, and regional identities for electoral gains. Sometimes the candidates contesting the elections use their caste, religion, and gender to influence the voters and ask them to cast their vote in their favor. Okay, especially this caste and religion play a very important role in elections, and voters also try to see the candidates who belong to their own particular religion or caste. Okay, apart from that, gender and regional identities also play an important role while the voters choosing their candidates. This increases animosity and violence between different sections of the society during elections. So these caste and religion factors are so powerful that even the political parties, while allotting seats to the candidates, giving tickets to the candidates, they will try to see whether in that particular area he has, command over the people belonging to his own caste or religion. So all these aspects are, carefully observed by the political parties, because they don't want any of the candidates to lose the elections. So this increases animosity and violence between different sections of the society during elections. Whenever caste and religion come into picture, we are going to have clashes in the society. It vitiates the atmosphere in the society. The Election Commission invokes provisions of the Representation of People Act to disqualify such candidates from contesting in the elections. So we discussed about the Representation of People Act 1950 and Representation of People Act 1951, both passed by the Parliament in the previous session. Okay, so there are all the provisions related to elections are mentioned in these two acts, and the Election Commission makes use or invokes the provisions of these acts to disqualify, okay, those candidates. If it comes to the Election Commission's notice that the candidates are violating the provisions, then it may disqualify them. Objections on preparation of electoral rolls. Objections have been raised regarding the preparation of electoral rolls. This process is not done in a careful manner, because most of the times eligible voters don't find place in these rolls. The names of genuine voters reportedly go missing in the voters list. Okay, this is a very common grievance all over the country, across the country during the time of elections. Voters come to know about their exclusion when they reach the polling booth. So once the voter on the day of polling, the voters reach the booth, they stand in the line for a long time, and when they finally go to cast their vote, the polling officials will tell that we are sorry, your name is not there in the list, you will not be allowed to cast the vote, because only those voters whose names are mentioned in the voters list only will be able to cast their vote. Okay, so most of the times opposition parties will criticize the ruling party they say that the opposition parties say that the ruling party is responsible for these kind of happenings. They knowingly deleted the votes, because the deleted voters are in favor of the opposition parties. So these kind of arguments will take place whenever a large number of voters don't find their names in the voters list. Another problem observed is the bogus entries in the voters list. So bogus entries, there will be many names in the list, but those persons don't exist in the reality. Such entries are called bogus entries. Okay, that is why Epic card is used to identify the genuine voters. So to counter this problem, the EC suggests that voters should verify their names in the voters list available on its website. So the Election Commission has come out with a solution for this problem, and it suggests that all the voters should verify their names in the voters list. The voters list will be kept available on the Commission's website, and every voter must check whether his name is there in the list or not. Electoral photo identity cards, that is EPIC. The voters must bring their EPIC card or any other proof of identity at the time of voting. Okay, so EPIC card is the most common ID proof that voters carry to the booth, and there are many other IDs which are identified by the Commission. Okay. So as we discussed earlier also, this system was introduced by Mr. T.N. Seshan in 1993. Restrictions on poll surveys. Several media units carry out opinion surveys to gauge the attitude of voters during elections. Nowadays, the electronic media is very active, and each channel competes with the other, to bring out stories and to increase their TRPs. And sometimes it acts against the rules and regulations also. So media units carry out opinion surveys. What do you mean by opinion? Opinion of the people, which party they are going to vote for, which candidate they want to support, all these, what are the views of the voters in general against the elections, the procedures, candidates, parties, etc. All these are covered by the surveys conducted by the media units. They examine the voting behavior of voters, which is called psephology. This is a part of political science. Psephology is the study of voting behavior of voters. Okay, so the behavior of the voters is systematically analyzed by the psephologists during the time of voting. Here, voting behavior means which party is getting a lot of support from the voters and why they are supporting that particular party, and if they are rejecting a particular candidate, what must be the reason behind that. All these aspects are covered by psephology, and the people who are involved in this process are called psephologists. This is also a part of political science. Broadly, there are 3 types of surveys. All these opinion surveys can be divided into 3 types: pre-poll survey, exit poll survey, and post-poll survey. Okay, so what do you mean by pre-poll survey? This survey takes place before the actual voting date, before the actual voting takes place. Exit poll survey means candidates, I mean the voters who cast their votes upon their return from the booth are interviewed by the media personnel regarding their choice. Okay, that is called exit poll survey. And post-poll survey, that means after the elections takes place, after the election is over and the result out, why so and so party gained so many seats and why so and so party lost votes, lost the support of the people. All these aspects are analyzed. Okay, so broadly these are called poll surveys. The EC prohibits the media units from publishing the results of exit polls till the date of counting of votes. Okay, so after the poll takes place, there will be some gap between the polling date and the counting. Okay, so during this gap, the exit poll results should not be disclosed by the media units. Okay, till the date of counting, they should not disclose the results. Model code of conduct. This is very important. Model code of conduct is the guidelines framed by the Election Commission to be followed by political parties and candidates during elections. During the time of elections, political parties and candidates are expected to follow certain rules and regulations. Okay, what are the do's and what are the don'ts? All these things are called model code of conduct. So let us see what MCC includes. Restrictions placed on the government from announcing new projects and welfare programs. Okay, so usually just before the elections, the governments will announce many welfare programs saying that we have come out with this welfare program which will transform the lives of the poor people, or sometimes they'll say that these programs will continue. We are starting these programs, and if we come back to power, only these programs will continue. Otherwise, you may miss this. All these points that try to convince the voters that the voters should vote only for the party in power in the coming elections. Okay, so welfare programs have the capacity to attract the voters. So that is the reason why just before the elections, the government may come up with welfare programs. This fact is well understood by the Commission. Prevention on government departments from undertaking new recruitments. Always the jobless youth, jobless youth always looks for job recruitments. Okay, so this is one way of influencing the youth to vote for the ruling party. So that's why new recruitments are also not allowed during just before the elections. When the code of conduct is in force, new recruitments cannot be undertaken. Reasonable restrictions on election campaigns to prevent disturbance to the public. During the time of elections, one big problem that we all encounter is the campaigns of the political parties and their candidates. They disturb the normal public life. So, keeping this in view, the Election Code of Conduct imposes some restrictions. Okay. Prohibition on distribution of liquor. Liquor is one thing with which you can influence many voters in your favor. So that is why there is a ban on that during the time of elections. Prevention of the ruling party from misusing its office in campaigns. Using public office for personal electoral election campaign is prevented. Requiring parties and candidates to cooperate with poll officials on the polling day. Sometimes the parties and their agents enter into arguments with the polling staff. So they should cooperate with the polling staff. That is what is required by the candidates and their parties. The EC appoints observers to ensure strict implementation of the Model Code of Conduct. Any party or candidate deviating from Model Code of Conduct will be warned by the Election Commission. Sometimes this may attract disqualification also. Violation may attract disqualification to contest the elections. Preventive measures on non-serious contestants. In some constituencies, a number of non-serious candidates contest in the elections. Non-serious means they don't have any intention to serve the people, or they are not very serious about their political career, but still they contest the elections just to be in the news and just to become popular, and sometimes to deviate the votes also. Okay, so these non-serious candidates are a menace, and this was targeted by the Commission. The EC adopted some measures to prevent these tendencies. It increased the deposit amount required to file the nomination. Each candidate, before filing the nomination, they are supposed to deposit a certain amount with the Commission. So the amount was increased so that non-serious candidates will be discouraged. It raised the number of proposers required to sign on the nomination papers of the candidates. So every candidate who is interested to contest the elections should be supported by a required number of people. So this number was raised by the Election Commission. Candidates contesting for the post of President of India require 50 proposers among voters in the Electoral College. So 50 proposers should support the presidential candidate, and these 50 proposers should belong to the Electoral College. You know that Electoral College elects the President of India. An independent candidate contesting for Lok Sabha or State Legislative Assembly required 10 voters as proposers. Okay, so independent requires 10 voters to propose him or her. So we discussed about Mr. T.N. Seshan, who became very popular among all the common people of India and who brought name and fame to the Election Commission. Before T.N. Seshan came into existence, became the Chief Election Commissioner of India, Election Commission was not really recognized by the people. There is no visibility to the Commission because the previous election commissioners did not take things very seriously. Okay. So after T.N. Seshan came to power, people felt that yes, Election Commission also has some powers, and the Chief Election Commissioner can really exercise his powers to bring a change in the system. Okay, a time limit of 14 days for election campaigning after the date of withdrawal of nominations. Okay, only 14 days election campaigning will be allowed after the date of withdrawal of nominations. After filing the nominations, candidates will have a choice to withdraw also. Okay, one candidate should not be allowed to contest from more than 2 constituencies at a time. Candidates punished for 2 years should be barred from contesting in elections for the next 6 years. So candidates will be very careful. Those who are very serious about their political career will not be involved in any kind of problems. If a candidate in the fray dies, the election for that constituency should be postponed but not cancelled. Entire cancellation is not needed. It can just be postponed and conducted at a later date in by-election. After the time given for election campaigning ends, the sale of liquor should be banned for 48 hours. As I told you, liquor will have a tremendous influence on voters. So supplying liquor and buying votes is the common knowledge. So it should be banned. So in conclusion, as a dynamic constitutional body, the EC constantly implements electoral reforms. Okay, we encounter problems, and the type of problems that we encounter today may not remain after few years, and we may have to face new problems. So it is a continuous process. These reforms are a continuous process. It has become a role model for similar commissions in many other countries. Okay, so our election commission is very famous, and in fact, it is a role model for many such similar bodies across the world. Some election analysts believe that elections do not always represent the true choice of the masses, because we can see the influence of money, liquor, etc. So it is not, it doesn't really represent the true choice of the masses. That is what the critics feel. However, the electoral reforms in India have made a huge impact on the overall election process, making it free and fair. But we have been making efforts, the commission has been making efforts to implement the reforms and trying to make the entire process free and fair. Let's have a recapitulation. Since 2004, EVMs have been used in all general elections. The election system in India adopts the first past the post for elections to the Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies. President and vice president are elected through the proportional system of representation. During TN Sessions' tenure, Epic Card was introduced in 1993 for the first time. Though recognized as the largest democracy in the world, our election system is not free from flaws. Several attempts have been made by some commissions and committees to identify the shortcomings affecting the electoral process. Dear students, improve your learning by answering the following questions. Briefly write about electoral reforms in India. Write a short note on any 2 committees and commissions on electoral reforms, and psephology. What do you mean by that? Dear students, let learning and acquiring knowledge prevail over everything. Thank you very much for being with me during the session. I end the session here. Over to
Mrs. Bharati. So it was a wonderful session. So you gave the requisite information about the Election Commission of India and its roles, functions, and its powers in strengthening the Indian democracy. So thank you very much. Hope the students have acquired the requisite knowledge. Thank you very much. So we all look forward for some more sessions from you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.